In this video, we'll discuss the differences between behavior-driven development and test-driven development, along with the prominent reasons why behavior-driven development is considered a better replacement for test-driven development. We first came across the term test-driven development in the video titled TDD Principles from the learning path titled Testing for Clean Code, where we elaborated the basic principles of test-driven development. Test-driven development is essentially a programming practice that instructs developers to write new codes only if an automated test has failed. It's basically a software engineering practice that adopts a test-first approach, wherein you're required to write unit tests before the codes they're supposed to validate. Coming from the agile world, in which it's a basic practice of the extreme programming method, TDD today is recognized as a discipline in itself, and it's also used outside the agile context. Test-driven development starts with designing and developing tests for every small functionality of an application. In TDD, like we mentioned earlier, tests are designed and developed that specify and validate what the codes will do. And the primary goal of test-driven development is to make the code clear, simple, and bug-free, which is made possible because of the test-first approach adopted in test-driven development. As such, TDD sometimes is also known as test-first development. Now let's explore the process of software testing with TDD, using the sample figure that depicts a simple process implementation of TDD software testing. In a normal software testing process, we first generate the codes and then test the generated codes. This is not the case with test-driven development. Tests are likely to fail in the TDD process since the tests, specifically unit tests, are developed even before the code development. And in order to pass the tests, we have to develop and refactor the codes. Refactoring a code essentially meaning change certain parts of the code without affecting the overall behavior. The concept of test-driven development is to write and correct the failed tests before writing new codes. We can avoid duplication of code since we're writing a small amount of code at a time in order to pass tests, which are basically requirement conditions that we need to test to fulfill. As illustrated in the sample figure, in test-driven development, we develop and run automated unit tests before the actual development of the application codes. We've elaborated the concept of behavior-driven development in the previous video of this course, titled Behavior-Driven Development, and we've just recapped the concept of test-driven development. We've also understood that behavior-driven development evolved from test-driven development. So, what are the differences between these two prominent development and testing practices? Test-driven development is test-oriented. The test-driven development process begins with writing the test cases based